Hello, everybody. This is Rob Fredette with the podcast Hodgepod, and welcome. Another episode coming on today, and we're going in a direction of fiction novels, and I have a great guest today. Robert Gantz is on my podcast, and he has written a novel, and it's called Dead Wings. He has also worked in the Hollywood field years ago, and I cannot wait to talk to him about that, but also his novel. And Robert, welcome to my podcast. I'm thrilled you're here. Thank you.
Thrilled to be here.
All right. Yes, sir. So, first of all, let's talk about we talk about the novel. You worked in Hollywood, and you worked in some pretty interesting movies and television shows. So, talk about your career. And you were a cinematographer, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I went out to Hollywood right after college and spent many years there, in fact. And I worked, I got a graduate degree at the American Film Institute and then, started working. It was a struggle, believe me, it's not easy to break in. But if you persevere and you have a modicum of talent, then you can probably get some things done. But basically, I got lucky, but timing wise, because it was the very beginning of music videos when MTV was really big and all they showed were music videos. So I broke in shooting music videos. I was always wanted to be a cinematographer. So that's what I ended up doing. And then after a while of doing those and doing some amazing artists. I did a bunch of videos with Beyonce and I did a bunch of videos with all sorts of R&B bands. I worked with Jay-Z. I worked with, it was not as much rock and roll, even though that was what I was into, but a lot of R&B music. And it's a long list. I won't go totally into it, but it after a while I started getting offers to do commercials which paid better. So I started doing commercials and that was really fun. And selling soap for a living. It was okay. I didn't mind doing it. But yeah, I did a lot of fashion stuff like for Pantene, for Feria, for Revlon, all the high-end fashion things. I got a reputation as being able to light women in a very attractive way.
Very
So,
nice.
so that's what that started. And then interesting story was that I was getting off a plane to LA to go shoot a commercial, and I got a call from my agent saying Rennie Harlan wants to meet with you. He wants to meet with you about a movie. And I was like, sure, I'd love to do a movie. So I met with him. I'm thinking there was no chance he was going to hire me because I hadn't done a movie. And luckily, he did hire me, and we did a movie. It's not a very good movie, I will admit. It's called Mindhunters, but but it was a great experience. And then from there, I ended up doing a bunch more movies. I did a movie with trying to remember Lawrence Fishburne, and I did a movie with Mel Gibson.
Really?
I did a with Vincent Cassel, who's a French actor. Some people may know him. He was in Black Swan. But I did a bunch of French movies too because I met a director on another movie called Assault on Precinct 13, which was a remake of the original John Carpenter did. And then we developed a relationship. I went to France and did, I think, 3 movies with him at some point or another. And then, and I've worked with Vincent Cassel, who's an amazing actor. And that was very interesting, and fell in love with France and fell in love with being there. And eventually I was getting a little older, and it was, the film business is very demanding. It
Mhm.
really, you work 14 hours a day normally. Sometimes you're lucky if it's 12, but then there's lots of times. I remember I did a Janis Jackson video, and it was for 3 weeks, but the last 3 days of it were 3 22-hour days in a row.
Wow.
I know, it was brutal. It was called Rhythm Nation. I don't know if
I
you,
remember that. Yes, I do.
yeah. So at a certain point, I was young then, so that was a lot easier. But at a certain point, it's hard to keep up. So I decided that when the pandemic hit, I just finished a TV series in LA. I also, just to throw this out there, also did a CSI for a while, the one in Las Vegas, the original. And
Yeah.
then, so when the pandemic hit, I went back to my house in Connecticut and stayed there for a while. And I was just sort of like, I'm not sure how much I really want to work anymore. I did a couple of things after. I did a season of The Last OG. I did some other pilots and things, but I basically decided at that point that I was going to retire. And so now I'm retired. Occasionally something comes up and I'll do a little thing here and a little thing there, but mostly I'm just basically retired. And that's when I decided I'd always wanted to write a book. And I was a huge fan of Pulp Fiction when I was growing up. Chandler, Dashiell Hammett, James Cain, Ross McDonald. I love them. I ate their books up. And I was like, one day you're going to write a book. You want to write a book. And I'd been waiting and waiting. And I'd started a little bit and then I'd get a job and then it would go away
Yeah.
for like 6 months, and then I'd get a couple months off. And by the time I got back into it, another job would come. And then I finally, when I decided that I wasn't going to really work that much, I decided it's time to write the book.
Ooh.
And that's what I did. I finally wrote, a novel that I always wanted to write. And honestly, I could, it's funny because when I started it, I knew the beginning, but I had no idea what the end was going to be.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
And then that was one of the funnest parts about writing it, is discovering where it was going to go. Like, should I take it here? Should I take it here? Sometimes I'd try a direction and go, I don't like that. I'm going to go this way and take it that way. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
We'll talk about the book a little bit later, the novel later, but you mentioned Mel Gibson. I love Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, the first one. He was awesome in that movie. That was tremendous, truly awesome. I'm an 80s music and movie guy. I grew up in the 80s. I love 80s music, but you talked about MTV. MTV was like the social media back then. Every night they had a music video coming out. I remember it was the world premiere video at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I think if I 9 o'clock Eastern time or 7 o'clock, but MTV music videos, it's a short time for a song, but it's a lot of hard work. Like you worked like what, 22 hours a day on Rhythm Nation.
Yeah, that was several songs. I think there were 3 or 4 songs. I don't remember. But yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, some you would do in a day and it would be a long day. And then I remember I did one for Nas that we worked, yeah, I don't know, 20 hours. We did it all in a day. And it was really good video. It won some awards. But sometimes you'd get 3 or 4 days, but mostly it was 2 to 3 days that you would get to do one music video. But you'd work long hours, like when I did Bootylicious for Destiny's Child. That was 3 days. That was three
Mhm.
full days,
Wow.
and it was fun. I mean, that was really fun. They were great people. All
Mhm.
three of them were just really considerate and nice and sweet. And, it's always a pleasure to work with someone like that.
Yeah, that's great memories looking back at that. That's tremendous. You see a lot of stuff that the average fan does not see. That's awesome. I remember years ago, I worked in the food side of the sports and entertainment business. And I remember working concerts and football games, and those 20-hour days are long. But when you're doing back like you did and I did, it wears on you after a while. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It can pound you and really not get rest. So it's always good to, break away and do something else. So you were a cinematographer, is that correct?
That's correct.
So what
And
is
my
this? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you go on. You want to know what exactly a
Yeah,
cinematographer
so for my audience, what is a cinematographer? We see all these titles. What is a cinematographer? Because it's very important.
So basically, the cinematographer on a movie or a show or music video, whatever it is in charge of the lighting. So how the lighting looks. He's in charge of the composition and the framing. So he sets up the camera. Now, he doesn't do it
Hmm.
all the time because it depends on the director. The director might get more involved in framing up the image, and others directors will just stick with directing actors. So it varies from piece to piece, but basically what we do is we do lighting and we create the image. And that's the best part about it is you go in every day and you go, I get to make it look however I want it to look.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. It's like starting a new painting every day. And so he's also in charge of all the people who work for him, which is the grip, the gaffer, the grips, the key grip, the gaffers, and he works in tandem with the production designer to create that look. Like if you look at my background here, the production designer would have chosen the paint and chosen the the pictures that are on the wall, but I would have chosen the composition where there's windowed on one side, there's some paintings on the side, it's dark over here, and so that's the kind of stuff that cinematographer does. He's quite important, but some directors do more, some directors do less. But ultimately, it's the director's movie or commercial or whatever, so they're in charge.
That's fascinating. I've talked to people in the movie industry, actors, directors, and every portion of a film is very important. Everybody's got to be on cue, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everybody's got to be on cue and make sure everything is perfect because the final product is the total, at the end. And then when you see the final product in a movie, it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is you can always edit out things that the director doesn't want. But basically, as a cinematographer, for me, I think to be good, you have to be kind of anal, and you have to like everything in the frame has to be right. You know, picture can't be nothing can be wrong. You can't be lazy about anything. So it's very intense the whole day because you're looking at every detail and every detail has to be perfect.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure too. My goodness, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what?
I'm actually only 35 years old, and that's why I look like this.
Nah, you're fine, man. You're good. So what movies did you work on like in the 80s? Any big movies you work on?
Well, I actually didn't really start working on movies until the 90s because I was doing during the 80s, I was doing, you know, the music videos and the commercials and stuff like that. The first movie I did was the one called Mine Hunters with Rennie Harlan. And then I did the Assault on Precinct 13, which I mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
And I did three films in France because the director on Assault on Precinct 13 wanted me to come to France with him to do some movies. So we did three films there, and two of them were sort of like part one and part two of the story of this guy named Merine, who was a gangster in the 70s in Paris. He's famous. For French people, everyone knows him. He was like their Dillinger or Al Capone or whatever.
Mhm.
So we did these two movies. They did very well. The director won. They have the awards in France. The César Award is basically the equivalent, French equivalent to the Academy Award here.
Mhm.
Both the director and the lead actor, they both won Césars, and we had lots of nominations, and it was really fun to go to award ceremony there with also all sorts of really interesting people. We had Gerard Depardieu. I don't know if you know who he is. He was in, I don't think it was Roxanne. He was in Cyrano, a Cyrano thing that most Americans know. He's a very famous French actor, and I got to work with him. He's a great
Hmm.
guy, very funny. He would say to me, he'd bring me over every day we shot. He says, remember, shoot my close up first because I want to leave.
Great sense of humor.
Yeah, he was no, I think he meant it. He really meant it. He was kidding.
You mentioned the gangsters. I live here in Memphis, and George Machine Gun Kelly was captured here in Memphis in 1933 in an FBI raid. So there's a little gangster here, history here in Memphis. So find that pretty interesting. It was 1933, September 26th. So quite fascinating.
Yeah, I also did in there a small movie with Sissy Spacek, and then of course the movie that I did with Mel Gibson, which was called Bloodfather, which
Hmm.
was it was actually I thought a really good movie. Very small, didn't get a lot of eyeballs, but it was a very good movie.
Hmm.
Recommend.
You mentioned Sissy Spacek. She was great in JFK with Kevin Costner. I wonder why she didn't do a lot of more movies after that.
I'm not sure. I
She was
didn't know her that
awesome in that
well.
movie. Man.
She's just yeah, she's a very good actress. And I know that she was in, I don't remember the name. It was with Marissa Tomei. She was in this small movie, and I think they all got nominated. And maybe Marissa Tomei might have won an Academy Award. But there's so many things that go on. There's so many movies being made, and most of them don't get seen by very many people. And even if they're good or they're not, and there are a lot of bad movies get seen by a lot of people. But, yeah, I mean. Yeah, the movies that are very popular now, which I call amusement park movies, they're not really about people, they're about superheroes and things like that. Some of them are okay, like I thought Iron Man was amazing, but some of them are not so good. And but they make money, and that's what Hollywood is ultimately about, making money.
Yeah, it's very competitive, is it not, as well, right?
It's very competitive.
Wow.
It's really
You know,
so.
it's really interesting too. Movies that come out and they have think of actors that have played the lead role, and it's amazing. Like when you see movies, you see the lead actor, but there were like three or four other choices for certain movies. Isn't that really crazy when you see the final product? You ever wonder like what those other actors would have done in that movie? Like for instance, Die Hard. Bruce Willis wasn't the first choice, but they looked at Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and somebody else. But Bruce Willis was the perfect one, and was all said and done. That's my favorite movie, by the way, all time favorite. So
Die Hard?
yes, oh yeah,
What about Die Hard 2 and 3?
two. Yeah, two was good. I like Die Hard two. It was funny.
Rennie directed that one, Die Hard 2.
What's that?
Rennie
Who did?
Rennie Harlan.
Is that the
I,
first?
I, yeah,
Oh man, that was a great movie. A lot of good actors in that movie. Robert Patrick was in that movie. Ended up being the Terminator. But I always loved that. Die Hard was my favorite. So a lot of comedy and a lot of action. So it was a
I
good.
love Die Hard. I remember when I went to see it with a friend, I was like, oh, I don't want to see an action movie. That's not my thing. I went in there and I saw it, and I was just like, that was a great movie. It was like, wow. It opened up that whole action movie thing. I was much more into art movies then. But, yeah, I agree. Die Hard 1, 2, and 3, I thought was good.
Yeah, and I love the Hans Gruber and his crew. That they were hilarious. It was awesome. But when I saw that in the theater, I fell in love with it. It was just awesome. It was tremendous. But
The family often gets into discussion whether it's a Christmas movie or not.
I think it
And
is. I
I
think it is.
say it absolutely is.
It
So
is.
watch it on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I do watch it on Christmas Eve. I watch it with It's a Wonderful Life on
Yeah,
Christmas Eve, and then on Christmas morning, I watch Christmas Story with Alastair Sims. So I do that Christmas morning. I watch Die Hard Christmas Eve, and it is a Christmas movie because there's little things of Christmas. But I always think there's something with the 12 terrorists and the 12 days of Christmas. Something I don't know.
there it is.
I don't know. Just a little maybe subtle thing, but it was great. But yeah, for the people to say that it's not, it is. I trust
It
me.
is. There's no question. I won't even have that discussion.
Yeah, and I like it too. Like Hans Gruber is eating there during he's lecturing the people, the hostages, and he's eating there. So he was part of the party. I mean, he wasn't invited, but he crashed it and he was eating the hors d'oeuvres. So it worked out for him. So,
Exactly.
so
And I love that that they use Beethoven's Ninth, because to me that's one of the greatest, if not the greatest piece of music ever written. And the fact that that's in that movie really sold it to me. I was like, these people know what they're doing.
Yeah, every scene was perfect in that movie. Every scene just flowed. It was awesome. But I digress. I just wanted to mention that all my all-time favorites. So you have written this novel. So talk about that getting into the novel because it's quite a novel. But talk about that doing what you did in the movie and film industry and TV, and then you retired and now you're doing this novel. What was that like starting that process?
Well, like I said earlier, it was fits and starts to get going because I was working. But once I decided that it was time to write it, it still was very difficult. Even knowing that I was not going to have to stop, that I had to write it, not being a writer myself, I felt that this was very difficult, because you'd write something and you go, I don't know if it's good. I think it's good. And then sometimes you just like go, I gotta go forward. I gotta move on. I'll come back and look at it if I have to. But in terms of my experience in Hollywood, I use some of that in the book because the book takes place in Hollywood,
Mhm.
but and in its the backdrop is more Los Angeles than it is Hollywood. And because I lived in Los Angeles for many years, and I have strong opinions about Los Angeles, and it's really so the 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 the, the milieu is basically LA, a down and out guy who's used to be a successful cinematographer, but through actions of his own, having a bad temper, having drinking too much, falling into addiction with opiates, he's out of work and nothing's going right for him. And he basically his old agent calls him and says, I have something for you. But basically, his old agent's just setting him up to be a fall guy for something. And, but he ends up being placed in a situation that's very, very precarious. And after a little while, he has to figure a way to get himself out of it because otherwise he's going to end up dead. And so he is sort of not kidnapped, but taken to see this big rich guy who lives in Bel Air, and the guy in Bel Air tells him if he does these certain things, then he can get out of this situation that he's in. And so he starts on that journey. And that's basically the book is the journey of him trying to get himself free, but and then there's one more character that is very important to introduce because this rich guy in Bel Air, he sends somebody who works for him, a young woman, to help and to more or less to make sure that he does what the rich guy says. And so then it becomes the two of them traveling around trying to figure out what happened and what they can do to satisfy the rich guy, and that's what her purpose is. He's trying to get out alive, and that's what happens.
So when you were writing the book, I've talked to authors as well. I've talked to people in the film industry. I've talked to authors. Writing a book is difficult, and everyone has said you have to be disciplined to write it. Right?
You do, and I would get up every morning because I'm a great procrastinator,
Me
honestly.
too.
So I can't write for long, but I would try to make sure that every morning when I woke up, when my mind was clear and fresh, I would write for between an hour and 2 hours. Then I put it away, do all the other things that I needed to do. And then the next day, that's what I would come back and do. And some days were good and some days were not good. Some days I'd be like, I don't know what I'm writing here. This is awful. And then some days it would be, you just go. And one day you might write half a page. The next day you might write 5 pages or 6 pages. You'd be like, this is great. I'm on a roll. But it was very difficult for me at first to find that discipline and to find, you know, at first I was afraid that I wouldn't have a voice. But when I got started on it, I realized I had a very good voice, the voice that I wanted, and it was very consistent because I think a lot of times new writers, they don't know what voice they're going to write in. They don't they haven't explored it. And that is the very important, because that's the thing that gives the readers confidence, because the person who's writing it needs to be consistent and sure of himself. And I think that I was very lucky because I found a voice, and found it very easy to stay in that voice. Now I've tried to write some other things that's not in that voice, and that's been very difficult. So
Yeah.
my feeling is just write
Yeah.
this.
So I always talk also with authors. How do you know when that chapter is done to go on to the next one? Because I always find that every author I spoke to has a different way of doing things. Sometimes they really find horrible. It's like really tough, and other ones know when that last word or that last part of that chapter is done, they can move on to the next one. Did you find that difficult?
Actually, not that difficult, because the chapters are written as scenes almost. So it's like the scene would end,
Hmm.
then it would be the next chapter. I wrote it as if it were. Did you ever read Jurassic Park?
I have not read it, but I've seen the movie. But no, I didn't.
I read it one day. I was stuck in the airport because they lost my luggage and I wanted to wait for it. So I read it. Each chapter is a scene. It's just like a movie, the way
Hmm.
it's written. So it's like this scene, and then the next scene, and then the next scene. So that's sort of what influenced my chapters. Basically, okay, I've completed this scene. Now it's a new scene. We'll go to the next chapter. And that's how I basically did that.
That's awesome. And also, did you grab different facets of it's a Hollywood thriller, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a thriller. There are definitely some scenes in it that might be quite expensive to shoot.
Are you looking for to get a movie out of it? I think it would be pretty cool.
I would never say no to that.
No. And you'd be in charge.
I don't want to be in charge. I want to, like, you guys do it. You guys want to do it, you do it, and I'll stay at home, and you call me if you have a problem.
And how long did it take you to write it?
Honestly, it took almost, I think, 2 years. That's including the stuff before. But when I sat down to do it, finally finish it, maybe a year.
Hmm. Wow,
So
that's
I
awesome.
know I think I mean, the book ends with a bit of a incomplete ending. It says, like, to be continued. Wait, and I think that when I do the sequel, which is actually going to be sort of a continuation of this one, it will take much less time, because now that I know what I'm doing and have confidence in myself to do it. A lot of that has to, the writing part is about confidence in yourself. Am I wasting my time, or am I actually, or is this going to be good? You don't want to think about that you're doing all this and then it's going to be lousy. But once I finished it, I said, "You know what? It's not bad." So I like it. And the other thing is that it's 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 basically pulp fiction. It's not literature. If anyone picks it up and thinks it's literature, they'll be disappointed. It's a story. And it's something like, it's the same thing as, like, with a Raymond Chandler story. There's no super depth to the characters. There is some, but it's basically a story like The Big Sleep or To Have and Have Not. They just things happen, and which I think is probably part of the things that I've learned in life, is that so much is out of your control, and you end up having to deal with whatever you're facing, and you can't really control what you're facing.
Hmm. You mentioned you're a procrastinator. I am too. I'm trying. My wife gets on me every now and then about procrastinating. I'm trying to work every day to get things done so I don't have to do it the next day. So she got on me the other day about just something small, nothing major. She just said, "You can do today what you put off. You can do today, so you don't have to put it off till tomorrow." So it's sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's tough to stay on track. I've talked to other authors too, and you said 2 years. I've talked to other authors, 12 years, 10 years, 8 years to write a book. So when that journey's over, it just like it's a load off the shoulders.
Yeah, it's great though. You know what? But it's also like the same thing as when a film shoot ends. You can't wait for it to be done. You're working for 4 months straight. You're working your butt off, and you can't wait for it to end. And then the moment it does end, well, you're happy. But then the next day, you're like, You
Yeah.
feel empty inside. You're just like, "Oh my god, it's gone. What do I do now?" You're so intent on a purpose, and then the purpose is gone. So it's bittersweet, to be honest. It's really like you're so it makes you actually wanna write another one so you don't have to lament the fact that you finished your first or your second or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you did videos for some major A-listers in music, you've done movies, and you just mentioned, like, when that project's over, it's a letdown.
It's a letdown. It definitely is.
Wow,
And everyone feels it too.
wow.
You talk to the guys, you're like, I remember I worked with one director and he said to me, I know we want to get this done. We want to get this done as soon and be finished. But he said to me, but the day it's done, you will be really unhappy. And he
Wow,
was
that's
right.
amazing. Yeah, because 'cause you're so invested, you're working with these people, you have
Yeah.
camaraderie, and, when that's done, it's like, you're working on a high, really, and then it's a letdown, like you said. It's man, I didn't think of it that way, because you always gotta worry about, working on that next job, right?
Right. Well, that's the other thing in the business is always, you're always getting the next job. You're always, you know, calling your agent, what's next? What do we got? What's coming up? Blah, blah, blah. And fielding offers and then, and hoping that you choose a good one
Mhm.
because you can't guarantee what's going to happen. And it's funny, you know how there's so many movies that are made. Like I recently did a movie that never got finished. Union came in and shut it down because it was non-union. And I don't know if they finished it. I don't know, but I don't think they did. And it's kind of sad. You invest all that energy and all that effort, and then it doesn't even get done, and nobody ever sees it.
That's sad,
Yeah,
really. That's really sad, and
part of the business.
you mentioned Pulp Fiction earlier. Are you a fan of the movie Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
That was a great movie.
It was a very, very good movie. Tarantino's, I think no, I still think Reservoir Dogs was his best.
Yeah, that was good too, man. That movie, Pulp Fiction, there really John Travolta was in a different character for that movie, and that kinda
Great,
resurrected his
doesn't it?
career, didn't it?
Sorry?
It kinda resurrected his career, did it not? John
Oh,
Travolta.
yeah, absolutely. It absolutely did, and he was, cast off type, and that often can work well in certain movies. It's like there's a bunch of movies that I've seen. I remember seeing, did you ever see a movie called Internal Affairs
Yeah,
with
yes,
Richard Gere?
yes.
Richard Gere is an evil person in that movie.
Mhm.
Evil. And you're watching and you're going, when you first start watching and you're like, he can't be that bad. He's Richard Gere. He can't be. It's cast exactly the opposite of what you would think. And it makes the movie that much better
Yeah, I
because
love yeah.
he's horrible in that movie as his character, not his acting, his character.
I love it when actors go off like their normal cast and they do something different. I watched the movie The Conversation a couple of months ago with Gene Hackman, and I really with Robert Duvall, but a young Harrison Ford before the Star Wars started in 1977. I think that came out in 74, 75, but he was in a different light, and he was very young, but he was kind of like not a bad guy, but not what you're used to seeing now with all these other parts he's played. Indiana Jones, all these other parts. He was really awesome in that movie.
It's a great movie. I don't actually remember him in it, but I remember it was a really interesting movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So where can you find your novel? Is it at Barnes& and Noble and Amazon and other
You can find it on Amazon. You can find a hardcover, paperback, and Kindle on. You can just go to Amazon and download it or whatever if you prefer, or if you want a copy. Here it is. That's the paperback, so that's where you can find it. And I'm going to probably soon come out with an audio version of it. And I don't know if AI can do it, but I'd like to translate it into French because I actually think that French, when you go back and you watch Truffaut and you watch Godard and their early movies that were so focused on gangsters and that kind of Pulp Fiction, those things, I think it would be very popular in France. So, but I'm got a few things to do before I do that.
And what was it like getting that? Because I see things with authors, they get a box sent to their home and it's like the reveal. You open the box and you see the book, the published copies of it. Did you get that moment?
Well, sort of. I did with the hardcover. I really liked it, but I wasn't totally satisfied with the color on being a cinematographer. It's like if it's a shade off, it's not right. But but yeah, it's great. I mean, the great thing is that you can just hand it to someone and say, "Hey, here's my book."
That's cool.
And it feels solid rather than it just being online. I know for people reading, they read it on their iPad or their Kindle or whatever they read it on. But for me as a writer, it's just that I very happy to have something concrete that goes in my hand and I can say, okay, here's a book. I did it.
Mhm.
And there's going to be a few more in a little bit of time.
Did you get any inspiration behind the plot and characters to write the book? Or was there any, I know we may have discussed it earlier, but what was there any inspiration for the plot and the characters?
Well, not so much the plot, but the characters. There's always has to be a femme fatale. If you're doing a noir, it has to have a femme fatale. Sorry. So she'll she's in that. There's a character that's her, and then but mostly my inspiration was basically Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett. And that's where I got the inspiration for characters that exist there. But also there are many characters in this book that are kind of variations on people that I know. I'm not going to say who or anything like that, but they're variations. And they might have started out being that person and then I expanded or veered off, but there are definitely people, these characters to me are real. They're people that I've met. And and so in my life in LA, and so it's not like they're all just made up out of the air. They're based on not necessarily exactly, but real people I might know.
Mhm. Can the Hollywood industry be cutthroat?
Oh, it's absolutely cutthroat. It's like you said, you're talking about three guys for the same role. Well, there's six cinematographers for the same role. They bring you in for an interview, and hopefully, I remember one movie. I went in for an interview. I thought it went really well. He wanted to meet me again. I said, "Okay, let's meet again." And then I went in for another long interview, and then he wanted to meet me again, and I said, "No." It's like if you don't know from those two interviews whether you want to hire me or not, then I don't want to work with you.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. Sometimes you have to stand up for your rights. But yeah, it's a cutthroat business. And there's a lot of people who are pretending to be your best buddy and they are not. You have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Wow. You gotta have a thick skin.
Oh, you do because everyone faces a lot of rejection. Because for every job that you get, you probably get turned down for four or five others.
Man,
If you're an actor, it's even worse. They have it the worse. They go in there for they go in for a casting call and another call back and then another call back, and still they don't get it. And that's brutal. It's brutal.
it's not glamorous like you see.
There's no glamour.
There's no glamour in it.
We shot in a old Domino's sugar factory and that had been shut down, and there was what I would call molasses on the bottom of the floor, like this thick. Now, they laid plywood on top, but it seeped through everything, and it was like an all-night shoot, and it was just disgusting. That's just one show. There's several other ones. We used to shoot in the old Navy Yard in New York, and which got condemned, and, it was terrible for your health. There was things floating in the air. You had no idea whether it was asbestos or what it was, but you just pushed through because you wanted to do something, a nice project, and you needed to make a living. It's a tough business.
But it's also rewarding too because you got to work with some great musicians, and you have that experience and the memory of that. That must be pretty awesome.
It is, and I've worked with some really, really great actors. And Bill Paxton, I did a TV series with. What a great guy he was.
Hmm.
So sad when he passed, but he was a fantastic guy. And there's guys that you meet that are just fantastic. There's others that aren't so great, but you take that with again a grain of salt, and you just move on. But he, I mean, I really liked him. He was a great guy.
He played in Twister, right? Twister,
Twister,
Blue
and
Eyes, Tombstone, and
he was
Apollo
funny. Wasn't
13.
he funny in True Lies? He was really funny.
Oh God, that was hilarious. That he was
Yeah.
but those are four different characters he played that you said it was totally different from what, like Tombstone, Apollo 13, True Lies, and the fourth one I'm missing there, but Twister. But the totally awesome characters that he played. I remember when Twister came out, that was a fascinating movie back in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember that too. He
Yeah.
was a good guy. I did a TV series with him called, what was it again? Training Day. There was a version they had remaking the movie into a TV series,
Yeah.
and we did a season. And then after the season, he had the unfortunate incident with heart surgery, and then that was
Hmm.
that.
That's gosh.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Gantz has been my guest tonight on my podcast. He has written the book, or novel that is, Dead Wings. He's been gracious enough to join me. We talked about his Hollywood career and also other things he did in TV and film, and about his novel in depth. You can get it on Amazon. It's Dead Wings. Tremendous episode, Robert. And I'm really honored that you came on my podcast. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I'm really happy you had me on. I have to admit, it was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.